Some people claim to read the scripture, they claim to be experts on the scripture. When they teach the scripture, however, it seems as if they've never read the scripture, or either they are contorting the scripture to meet their own aims. This is what happens with respect to this Jacob's stolen blessing dynamic. Many people read this narrative about this stolen blessing and they come up with all sorts of excuses to explain why this stolen blessing was an okay thing. We're going to talk about this in the context of the creation of the constructive trust. Because what should have taken place with respect to this Jacob and Esau narrative, with respect to morality, with respect to ethics, even if you didn't have the 10 commandments, is that the property should have just been given to Esau. There was no bargaining for a blessing. There was no bargaining for an inheritance. There was a bargaining for a birthright. They were twins. And so one wanted to be the leader. In other words, that did not entitle that individual to all of the wealth that the father would have been passing down to this other son. However, individuals who identify themselves with Jacob, they tell themselves that this situation was justified. We're going to talk about constructive trust, and then we're going to delve into the psychology of this theology related to Jacob. Now, what is a constructive trust? We talked about this before with respect to reparations, where slave owners were unjustly enriched by this slave labor. This is not to exclude the fact that some of what was stolen cannot be replaced, because they actually took the lives of the people. And so what you have with a constructive trust is this is issued in cases of fraud or mistake. What happened with Jacob was Isaac was mistaken, but Jacob and his mother, they were engaging in fraud in order to steal this blessing. And so in cases of fraud or mistake, you would consider a constructive trust. Constructive trust grows out of this idea of fairness, or what's known as equity, growing out of morality and ethics. And it's to preclude unjust enrichment. In other words, it's to stop Jacob from being unjustly enriched. He was not justly enriched, he was unjustly enriched. And so what happens with a constructive trust is you simply transfer the property to the intended person. Whoever was supposed to have the property, then you transfer this to them. You see these in all sorts of inheritance battles. So sometimes you'll have a younger sibling, an older sibling, do some conniving in order to steal the property, the parents' property, from all of the other siblings. And sometimes the courts have to make some determinations related to fairness about the entire situation. When some individuals identify with Jacob, they identify as Jacob. Something akin to narcissism on steroids takes place. And so there is quite a bit of cognitive dissonance that goes on. And so apparently, in order to feel okay about being connected to Jacob, there is an excusing of anything that Jacob did. Because, of course, people are feeling connected to Jacob based upon their own ancestry narratives. Let's be very clear here. Jacob was a thief, and his mother was a conspirator. The victims were Isaac and Esau. Jacob was not a victim. This was not a lost blessing. This is a stolen one for those of you who are identifying as clergy who are pushing this false information according to your scripture. Again, think of families where the younger child steals everything that is not nailed down from the other siblings. Some people fight about it, some don't. That does not change the fact that it was stolen. It's not lost. Okay? He supplanted his brother. His name meant supplanter. He was a usurper. He was a thief. Okay? And so the birthright was not going along with the blessing. The birthright was sold. Of course, one wanted to be the leader, one sold the birthright, the right to do that, to the other one. However, the blessing, the inheritance of the property, that was stolen. And so claiming that it was lost, that's unacceptable. Claiming that it's divine will, unacceptable. A loss is when somebody misplaces something permanently. A theft is when someone takes something that does not belong to them permanently, thereby converting the property from someone else to themselves. It's a form of appropriation. And so many people claim that they don't understand this. But these same people cannot wait to rule the world with what they identify as a Messiah, really. Someone who cannot tell the difference between right and wrong. Someone who cannot tell the difference between loss and theft when it's done by a purported family member. These individuals are the ones that believe that they are going to righteously and justly rule the world. Really.